morning, everyone. Welcome to our English class. We are already on our 8th week, and this will be the last lesson for the third quarter. So, for the past few weeks, we've been discussing about literary approaches. Okay, and today we are going to learn two more literary approaches. Okay, as the slide is showing, we are going to talk about historical and reader response approaches. So these are our objectives for this lesson. You are expected to define historical and reader response approaches, determine the literary approach through given questions, and critique a literary selection based on historical and reader response approaches. Okay, to begin our lesson, I am presenting to you some pictures, and these pictures are taken from movies. Okay, so what I want you to do is to identify if you know this character, maybe you have seen this movie. Okay, if you have any idea, okay, can you tell who this person is or who is this character? Okay, so if your guess is Joan of Arc, you are correct. Okay, Joan of Arc, she's a personality that is very prominent in the war, during the war between France and England, which was also called the Hundred Years' War. Okay, it appeared to be settled in 1420, but the death of King Henry V of England reignites it. Okay, so England occupies large areas of France and appears set to take the whole of it. Into this moment of crisis rides legendary Joan of Arc, a teenage girl who claims to be led by divine visions. Okay, and according to history, Joan of Arc later on became a saint. Okay, so I have another picture for you. Okay, so the title of the movie is The Twisted Tale of Bloody Mary. Okay, so would you happen to know Bloody Mary? Okay, I guess some of you have seen this movie. Bloody Mary is actually Queen Mary the First, okay, or the Queen of Tudor, Queen Mary of Tudor. She was loved, she was a princess, an heir to the throne, but the childhood fairy tale turned to lifelong nightmare for Mary Tudor, Henry VIII's first child. When Henry divorced her mother and married Anne Boleyn, Mary became an outcast and a threat to the Protestant succession. By a twist of fate, on the death of her brother, she became queen at last in 1553. But her attempts to make England Catholic again were a disaster for her and the country. History has called her Bloody Mary for the burning of the Protestants. But how fair is this? So, in the movie, it was shown a woman, or it has shown a woman with her beliefs, okay, the true beliefs of this woman. So, I hope you are fond of watching this kind of films. Okay, they are not only this kind of films are not only for our entertainment, but actually some of them will teach us about history. Okay. Now, how is this related to our lesson for today? Well, I have already said we are going to learn about historical approaches or historical approach. Now, for our first task today, okay, I am going to show you my whiteboard, okay, for a while. Okay, so this is my whiteboard. Now, the task is to rearrange the scrambled letters to find the word that completes each consideration for the corresponding literary approaches. So, those that are jumbled are those that are scrambled are also written in capital letters so you can identify them. This is number one, SLFAW in the plot. Number two, the theme and USEOPR of the text. Number three, explain what you, KILE, or don't like in the text. Number four, explain why you agree or disagree with the writers REPSPCEIVTE. Okay, then we have another for historical. Okay, number one, ENW or ENHW, the work was written. Number two, NETVES, occurring at the time of writing. Number three, ideas circulating at the MEIT of writing. Number four, authors HBYOAI, RGP, and social background. And number five, what the work TEMAN to the people who first read it. Okay. So I will be waiting for the screenshots of your answer or answers to this activity. Okay. Now let's go back to the presentation. Okay, so are you familiar with this character? Okay, I suppose you've seen this Disney movie before. Okay, so I am going to show you or give you the link to this summary, and I want you to watch it on your own. Okay? Then after watching, I would like you to answer a few questions, or I would like you to do this activity. Okay, here. This is a work in pair activity. So you can choose a partner from your classmates. What you'll do is to read set A and set B, analyze these questions, and then from your analysis, write down at least 3 differences between the sets of questions. How is set B different from set A? So that's what you will write in number 1, 2, and 3. Okay? I will prepare uh, a link in our classroom. So there you will be uploading your answers to this activity. Okay, so don't forget to turn them in. Now moving on, let us discuss the difference between historical and reader response approaches. So let's begin the historical approach. Among the various approaches to understanding literary works like formalist, psychological, gender or feminist, and other approaches, historical approach is one of the oldest. It is a branch of criticism that investigates the origins of ancient texts in order to understand the world behind the text. The historical approach to literature simply means that the critic is the person trying to understand any work of literature, looks beyond the literature itself to the broader historical and cultural events that might influence the author whose work is being considered. The critic will begin to research what was going on in the world at the time the literary work was being written in order to see if the author either consciously or unconsciously incorporated outside forces in the literary work. This approach then usually helps the critic and readers to understand all of the events and forces that might affect the author as he or she is composing the work, and this gives us more comprehensive understanding to the work itself. Now, there is what we call primary goal to historical criticism. So, what is the primary goal? It is to discover the text's primitive or original meaning in its original historical context and its literal sense or sensus literalis historicus. And then we have its secondary goal, which is to establish a reconstruction of the historical situation of the author and recipients of the text. That may be accomplished by reconstructing the true nature of the events that the text describes. An ancient text may also serve as a document, record, or source for reconstructing the ancient past, which may also serve as a chief interest to the historical critic. Now, there are questions that the critic must look into or must answer. First of all, who was the author? How did his or her life influence the literary work? And then, what was the time period of the text like? And how does its setting influence meaning? So these are some of the questions that a critic must look into to be able to have a good critic or write-up about the selection. The next one is called reader response approach. Now, what is reader response? At its most basic level, reader response criticism considers readers' reactions to literature as vital to interpreting the meaning of the text. However, reader response criticism can take a number of different approaches. A critic deploying reader response theory can use a psychoanalytic lens, a feminist, or even a structuralist lens. What these different lenses have in common when using a reader response approach is they maintain that what a text is cannot be separated from what it does. So a reader response theorist also share two beliefs. Okay, what are those? Number one, that the role of the reader cannot be omitted from our understanding of literature. And number two, that readers do not passively consume the meaning presented to them by an objective literary text. Rather, they actively make the meaning they find in literature. In this way, reader response theory shares common ground with some of the deconstructionists discussed in the post-structural area when they talk about the death of the author or her displacement as the author or uh, the authoritarian figure in the text. There are typical questions that are to be answered using the reader response criticism or approach. How does the interaction of text and reader create meaning? What does a phrase-by-phrase analysis of a short literary text or a key portion of a longer text tell about the reading experience pre-structured by that text? Do the sounds or shapes of the words as they appear on the page or how they are spoken by the reader enhance or change the meaning of the word or work? And how might we interpret a literary text to show that the reader's response is or is analogous to the topic of the story? And lastly, what does the body of criticism published about a literary text suggest about the critics who interpreted the text and or about the reading experience produced by that text? Okay, now after we discuss this, you are going to do your group activity. So what are you going to do? Here. First of all, you have to read the summary of The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I'll be sending you the copy of The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and I can also send you a link to that summary. Okay? Then, after reading, You are going to list down 5 questions for each approaches, okay? And also provide answers to those questions that you have constructed. So we have a table which you will follow. Okay, so write the title, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, its author, Victor Hugo, and then here, for historical approach, write your questions here on the left. Okay, 5 questions, and of course, write your answers opposite the questions. Okay, for reader response, you create another table. Okay, we talk to with 2 columns also. Write your questions here, and then your answers opposite those questions. Okay, so I am hoping that you will be helping um, each members of the group will be helping in doing this activity. Okay, and I'll be waiting for your answers in our FB group. Then when you're done, okay, to wrap up our lesson for this week, okay, I want you to uh, do this concept map. Okay, this can be found in our classroom also. So you just give me words that are related to historical approach and reader response approach. So at least 2 for each. Okay, you copy this. You copy this concept map. Okay, and also we have a short quiz. Okay, link will be posted um, in our classroom also. And for your assignment, do not forget this. This is individual, okay? Individual assignment. Make your own analysis of the Hunchback of Notre Dame using either historical or reader response approach. Make sure you use sets of questions specific for your choice. Okay? So this is our rubrics, what I'll be using in giving you grades for the assignment. Content, 15 points is the perfect score. Structure, including coherence and unity, 10 points. Style and originality, 10 points also. So a total of 35 points. Okay? So that would be all for today's lesson. Okay, so I hope everyone will be working on the tasks. And if you have any questions, always feel free to send me a message. Okay, God bless everyone.